With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Let's Talk About Sex.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Let's Talk About Sex, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. And I am your host, Estela Rodriguez-Jebril, licensed clinical therapist and the Muslim sex coach. And we are live here on Sky Channel 752 and across Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And I want to invite you tonight to take part in the discussion that we're going to have so that you can get the advice that you want by simply calling in through the studio on 01924 231 083. And remember that standard network rates do apply. So make sure that you have the bill payer's permission before calling in. And you can also ask your questions and share your thoughts and comments in confidence by using WhatsApp and messaging us at 07950-797-017. And welcome to today's final edition of the Series 1 that Let's Talk About Sex. Today we're going to talk about spiritual sex, the art of orgasm, and orgasmic energy. What is that? What is it? And do you have access to it? Let's talk about types, causes, and misconceptions. You don't need anyone to tell you that the orgasm is magical. It's possible, though, that you don't know just how vital they are to your life outside of the bedroom. And I'm speaking to married couples. Women especially have a complex network of pelvic nerves that branch from the clitoris, vagina, and cervix to the spinal cord, and then up to the brain. In her revolutionary and controversial book, Vagina, A New Biography, cultural critic and journalist Naomi Wolf speaks about the scientific research that shows how a biological woman's wiring down there is different. No two are the same. Biological born men, on the other hand, house penile nerves that are quite uniform, distinctly laid out in a grid system. For biologically born men, their physical set is very different than biologically born women, because this tangled bunch of sensitive pathways is so complicated and strongly connected to our brain and central nervous system. Women have gained from orgasms than men do. There are many physical benefits that science tells us about, like increased blood flow and spikes in happy chemical hormones like dopamine and oxytocin. Now, both men and women experience these hormones, women at a much higher level. So sorry, guys. Let's better understand how this melting pot of pleasure manifests in your daily life, your careers, and with your creativity. Now, the right kind of orgasms, yes, there are countless different kinds of orgasms, can make you more powerful, more determined. And this happens when the body and the mind are working together in perfect harmony along with your partner. Not that you need any more reasons to jump into bed with your spouse to visit Pleasure Town, right? Now, I want to share with you some ways that you can maximize and improve your orgasms. How does that sound? Does that sound good? Okay. The best thing that you can do to improve the strength of your orgasms is to exercise your pelvic muscle areas. There's this long technical name for that, and I can't even pronounce it, so I won't even try. Now, these muscles form a sort of hammock around your sexual organs and contract when you have an orgasm. Now, you can locate these muscles the next time that you're urinating. So the next time that you're urinating, try to cut your urine flow off before the bladder is empty. You're going to notice an internal pulling up type of feeling. Practice squeezing, releasing these muscles throughout the day and during sex. This is going to help you to improve your orgasms. These are known as Kegels. Have you ever heard of Kegels? They're really easy to do. And one thing is that it can be key to remember to do them. Now, if you need some help developing and understanding and sticking to a Kegel routine, just Google about them. Google how you can do them. It's really easy to find, and you'll find easy systems that have worked for many. Or you can just set up a daily reminder on your phone to remind you throughout the day, ding, ding, Kegel routine time. No one's even going to know that you're doing your Kegel exercises. And now that, and I want you to know that you don't need your partner to practice your Kegels. And when you are with your partner, getting in the mood for some great sex, doing your Kegels will be so easy because you've been practicing them. And because you've been practicing them, you're going to be able to get really warmed up really quick. Now, you also want to pay attention to timing. How much time you give yourself and your spouse before tipping over the edge into orgasm can affect how powerful those orgasms are actually going to be. Now, you might be one of those that likes to go straight for the gold quickly, or you might like to draw things out a bit. One thing that is important is to pay attention to your own personal timing and pay attention to your partner's timing. And this is going to allow you to really experiment with each other and to get really synced in with one another. And this will allow the timing just to flow. Now, you also want to pay attention to your breathing. Your breath plays a huge role on how you orgasm. Just like the timing, there are different there are different preferences for different individuals. Now, you want to be able to focus on your breath. It's important to pay attention to your breath. Maybe you like to take long, slow, deep breaths. This can actually make your orgasm so much more powerful. Now, there are individuals that like to feel aroused rapidly and they take shallow breaths. The only thing that you want to be really careful with is that you don't hyperventilate. Now, others will, feel their orgasms more intensely if they hold their breath. Now, holding your breath before climaxing is one of those ways that will allow you to experience really powerful orgasms. But once again, you want to be able to be careful and not take it too far, because then you'll risk passing out. Try these different patterns and see how they work. You can also bring in reinforcement. So if you feel comfortable using a vibrator with your spouse, then go for it. It's an additional toy to have fun with. And yes, also remember lubricants. They can come in all sorts of flavors, and you may not even be conscientiously aware of any pain that you might be feeling, but any sort of discomfort can decrease the pleasure of your orgasm. And lubricants can create the perfect environment for you and your partner. Now, the Quran relays the sort of broad arching, values that we expect from our Abrahamic faith, such as admonition against sex outside of marriage and endorsements of public modesty and chastity. And there are a dozen hadiths that offer concrete and candid details, prophetic, details that talk about sex and sexuality. And numerous hadiths suggest that new Muslims would ask our prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, that, what are they going to do after they convert? How are they going to deal with their sex life? And our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, would respond in his lectures, discussing consent, foreplay, and the value of maintaining compassion and playfulness in the bed with your spouse. Get in on today's discussion and get the advice that you want. The studio waiting for your calls, and you can send your questions and comments through WhatsApp. Both of the numbers are right here on the screen. So what are your questions about orgasms? Do you experience orgasms, or have you never experienced an orgasm? These are such important topics to have and discussion. We're going to be taking a short break, but I want you to take in this information and use this as an opportunity to bring your questions to us so that you can experience intimacy at the deepest level with your partner, experiencing orgasm that will allow you to experience. We're going to be right back to continue this conversation. Make sure after the break.
With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Let's Talk About Sex. With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Let's Talk About Sex.
Welcome back to Let's Talk About Sex. And today we're talking about spiritual sex, the art of orgasm. And we have a couple of questions that have come in through WhatsApp. Somebody's asking about the myth of squiring. And I thought I knew a lot more about sex, but this is a term that I'm not familiar with. So I'm going to have to get back to you on that one. Another sister shared that she can't make her husband come. What are some tips that I can give her? What's wrong with her? Well, first of all, there's nothing wrong with you. And what this really says to me is that there's, a low level of comfort and confidence with each other. So cultivating, that compassion and that empathy and that connection is so important. Really being vulnerable with each other. And there could be definitely some, underlying issues that you would need to address with an expert. So let's talk about the union of marriage. Sex within the union of marriage is a spiritual experience. And tonight you've learned some ways to elevate your intimacy with your spouse and with yourself by gaining some tangible ways that will allow you to master your orgasmic experience. Shyness is of the characteristics of faith. And this is expressed by Aisha. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, talked about how shyness is a characteristic of faith, but not at the expense of knowledge. May Allah have mercy on the women of Ansar. They were really knowledgeable women that were bold and they spoke their mind. You know, their shyness didn't prevent them from learning the religion and their rights to the experience of bliss in the bedroom. The Quran and Sunnah are frank about sexual matters. Why do we have such a hard time talking about it? Well, hopefully this is an opportunity to really let go of some of those, perceptions. There's no such thing as standard sexual habits. A couple creates their own standard to experience as they grow together, as they cultivate vulnerability with each other in a safe way. Spirituality and spiritual intimacy involves teamwork and takes time and patience and effort from both parties. There are two of you involved, not just one. As Muslims, marriage is the only place in which you get to fully express and experience sexual intimacy, and mastering your ability and your collaborative ability with your partner to reach powerful orgasms is going to give you a glimpse at paradise on earth. Now we're getting another message. So let's, I can make myself orgasm through masturbation, but can't orgasm through sex. And, we're not talking in depth about masturbation, and that's something that you want to be really careful with. You want to combine masturbation with the playfulness and the foreplay with your partner. There is a lack of connection. So cultivating a deeper connection is so important so that you can reach those powerful orgasms together and get that glimpse of paradise here on earth. To experience spiritual sex and the art of orgasm, you have to also be fully in love with yourself, with your own body as it is. Studies have directly linked body confidence with the ability to orgasm. And both men and women have these body image issues. And even with, the quality of the orgasm itself, when you truly are so in love with yourself and content with who you are inside and out, then you're going to be able to also connect with your partner at a deeper level, influencing them, impacting them with that body image idea that perfection is not needed. Body confidence is a struggle for most women and men too. Knowing that you can improve your orgasm by being kinder to yourself is hopefully that motivation that you need to really work through any body image issues that you're having. Now, there's also something to be said about accepting and loving your orgasm as it is. It's so easy for both men and women to get wrapped up in not being good enough. And orgasm is another one of those, endless ways that men and women can feel inadequate. There's no such thing in perfection. There's no such thing as perfection in anything. So don't strive for perfection, just strive for connection and, vulnerability and, being connected with your partner in a loving way and being connected with yourself in a loving way. It's natural to want to experience as much pleasure as possible. And try not to obsess about your orgasm or judge yourself because of it. Enjoy and appreciate what you've got and see where that takes you by having patience and being flexible. We have all these popular stereotypes of Islam, right? Sometimes we think that Islam is about being prudish. Prudish tendencies are not part of our faith. Our faith is so rich in openness, traditions that are open and about clear communication. That was so prevalent during the time of our beloved prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. We want to be able to return to that openness so that we can have these open dialogues that educate and that dissipate confusion about sex. Muslims, there are Muslim cultural critics. There are so many critics. There are scholars that have often been noted at being like squeamishly reserved when it comes to the topic of sex. We want to be able to talk about this topic openly, and our Muslim cultural critics and scholars need to be a part of that growth. When sex comes up, it's often in the context of sermonizing on modesty, which is important, and gender segregation, which, yes, we need to know the importance of segregating ourselves in certain occasions. Or many times it's just private talks or focusing on marriage counseling, which, yes, it is important. Or just the pure sexual mechanics wrapped up in the heteronormative values. And like I said, these are all important. And we want to be able to also explore and cultivate the deep type of intimacy that can give you a gratifying and fulfilling orgasm in your marriage, so that you can gain the right kind of sexual arousal that has the ability to take you into an altered state of consciousness, you and for your spouse at the spiritual level. When you experience an orgasm, that is your taste of paradise. So with the right intention and knowledge, you avoid unnecessary censorship and criticism. And we as an ummah can evolve to understand the importance of talking about sex and intimacy from an Islamic perspective that doesn't, fail us, and it doesn't fail our future generations. And we gain clarity and perspective that safeguards us from the temptations that are out in the world, the temptations that misguide society, that misguide our culture, that misguide our ummah. As you cultivate healthy and fulfilling orgasm in your marriage and with your spouse, you will also work towards cultivating and trusting your emotional intuition. Trained physicians who work with brain, in the area of brain sex neuroscience, report that humans have a part of the brain called the neocortex. And this area is responsible for judging people and measuring up our environment. It's kind of the vigilance center. And what this does is it makes us more judgmental. And experts say that orgasms temporarily shuts down this neocortex and allows you to experience healthier orgasms and feel more and judge less. So having amazing orgasms will make you a more empathetic person, will allow you to cultivate a more beautiful relationship with your spouse. Frequent orgasms will allow you to spend less time sizing up everyone around you, being less judgmental, and becoming just overall more spiritual and having just overall wellness and connections to life and with your Lord. Spiritual sex and spiritual intimacy is the process of opening up your heart It's the aspect that allows you to be vulnerable with your partner, with yourself, and connecting with the oneness of Allah. As you gain the experience, as you step away from the shyness, as you allow yourself to really express this, let's keep this conversation opening. This brings us to the end of our series over the past months. Together, we've been able to lift the lid on the hottest topics. Thank you for being a part of this discussion. I thank you along with the whole team here at British Muslim TV. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for joining us.
With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Let's Talk About Sex.